Welcome to S Class, the highest tier in podcasting. Today I'm joined by the strongest man of the Stone Age. They call him the Mammoth.
The Mammoth?
Yes, the
How do
Mammoth.
you even... Why? That's so terrible. I'm not strong at all. I'm probably the weakest person you know.
Well, we tried Sabretooth in our first run through, and you weren't a fan, so...
Yeah, but Sabretooth made sense because I am very fast and quick. This one feels like you're just phoning it in and couldn't think of anything better.
I'm just jamming it in there. It was off the fly.
I'm very disappointed in you, Justin. I would give your title as being the literal stone of the Stone Age. Like you're just a rock.
Ouch.
That's it.
Mm.
Yeah, you got nothing.
I'm speechless. I have nothing to say.
You're a worthless stone. And I don't even know why we're talking about the Stone Age, because the series we're talking about has nothing to do with the Stone Age.
This is
so you're wrong on every account.
This is the second Stone Age, though. People are literally turning to stone. This is even more of a Stone Age than the first Stone Age.
I feel like you're only saying that because it's the name of the series.
No, it's literally the Stone Age. I think it's fair and relevant.
In a literal sense,
Rob,
yes.
What are we talking about today?
Justin, we are talking about Dr. Stone, not Mr. Stone. Dr. Stone.
Got his certification.
Yes, he had a PhD from Princeton. He is Dr. Stone.
Princeton. So we did something different today. So Rob and I, Rob watched or read the manga this time around, and I watched the anime this time around. And we were talking about this earlier. It's really nice that we're able to watch a really fun and interesting series together for the first time in quite a few years. We used to do this all the time at our buddy's house on the weekends, and we really haven't done that in like 3 or 4 years. Probably not since JoJo, maybe. Like JoJo Part 3 is the last time I can remember doing this together.
I think the problem is that we have like more than 3 friends now. So like we have we have more obligation to be social when we're together and not just sit around watching anime.
I think that was peak friendship time, honestly.
Oh yeah, no.
It's gone downhill since then.
Well, it was never really uphill.
Oh, fair.
It's like going from a valley into a crater. Speaking of craters, the Stone Age.
The Stone Age. So I'll give a quick premise on what we watched or read. In this series, you have these 2 high schoolers. They're best friends. One of them's a genius, and one of them is this big meathead. And the meathead goes to go confess his love to his high school sweetheart. And as he's about to do so, the entire world just petrifies. Everything turns to stone around the entire world. And one of the really cool things, and I don't know how well they did this in the manga, but in the anime, there was a couple of things they nailed just in these first 5 minutes. The first thing is that when you see like this green, like it's almost like a force field envelop the whole world as people are turning into stone around the world, you hear voice actors from all different languages, and they're in their native tongues. Like I can understand the English from America or England and the Chinese from when they passes over China, people asking for help or like screaming in fear, which was really well done. There's no English, which you would kind of expect them to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they did that in the manga, Rob. Did you just get like little text bubbles, right? If they even did that.
Yeah. It was they went the direction of text bubbles because they couldn't hire voice actors for the manga.
I wasn't sure if they just omitted it or not. But the other thing was that when people start turning into stone, you see random like pedestrians just turning into stone. And I thought a couple of scenes that were really hard hitting was one where there's pilots turning into stone and they're about to crash, and it gave this really 9/11-esque feeling. We're both from New York, so like we lived through that. It felt actually kind of like ominous, and gave you goosebumps. And the other one was there's like a dog who is like tied to a fence, and its owner was about to like come out of a restaurant or something like that, and the dog is just freaking out and barking, and that dog is going to sit there until it starves to death or escapes.
Yeah, it's a very heavy start.
Yeah, it seems like this fun, goofy best friend dynamic, and then it gets really dark really fast.
Literally.
Yeah.
Everyone turns to stone. Can't see anything.
No, not a thing.
And remember, Justin, I don't know if this is important yet, but it's not just the people that turn to stone. It's also sparrows.
Swallows or sparrows?
You might be right. It might be swallows. Either way, it's literally just humans and a single species of bird.
That was also really interesting. You have this mystery going on where those are the only 2 living creatures that turn to stone, not plants, not other animals. It's just these 2 creatures, and it's like, is this alien or a man-made phenomena or what the fuck's going on? There's a really great mystery happening.
But you know what I like about it is that the mystery is secondary to the story. It's you don't have this story existing because of this mystery and they're trying to solve this mystery. It's just another piece to the puzzle of the series. Whereas you have a lot of other, especially Shonen Jump series, where you know from chapter one what your end goal is, like Pirate King, Hokage, all that. This is a lot more than just we need to find out what the mystery of this stone earth is. And I really appreciate that about Dr. Stone, is that there's going to be a few different mysteries that we're trying to solve along the way.
Yeah, I think the beauty of Doctor Stone is the journey, not the destination. So for the listeners, we'll tell a little bit more about the background of the first few episodes, first few chapters. But after a certain point, we're going to say stop listening and actually go watch this series if this sounds like something interesting to you, because it's really worth the watch or the read.
Well,
We'll figure that out.
yeah, we'll figure that out at the end. But I definitely do think that you don't want much more than what we're already saying spoiled.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm not sure if we should even. I I think maybe we should stop with spoilers now.
I think we can talk a little bit more about our main characters a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know.
So
I don't know
just
if I want to spoil. Our villain.
okay. So if you want to experience this, just know that the whole okay, so just the only thing is, so they wake up 3,000 years later. Our main character, the scientist Senku, he wakes up 3,000 years later, and the world has sort of restarted. Like everything, all the buildings have rusted and deteriorated, and grass has overgrown everything. And it's his job and he's not just a regular like high school scientist. He's brilliant. He's like a super genius, and his goal is to rebuild the world's civilization from the Stone Age up. And that's where our journey begins.
That is where our journey begins.
So from this point onwards, we'll talk spoilers.
Spoiler territory. So if you haven't already,
Okay,
turn off
go.
this podcast.
Uh, and if you want to, you can listen to us afterwards, but you probably won't.
No, I know I won't.
Let's start off talking about our first three or four main characters, right? So we have Senku, who's the brilliant scientist, and I really love Senku.
Oh
I
my god,
think he's fantastic.
Senku is fantastic. I don't, especially as it goes on, like even in this part one, it starts where you're just thinking like he's purely a mad scientist that only cares about like discovering new things and like just being this super genius. But like he has these moments where like he does things so wholesomely and uses his science for good and to help like people that he just likes and cares about.
He has such a big heart, and but he's so cool. He's not lame. When you think of a genius in anime, you usually think of like the big glasses nerd loser who's kind of like a side character, and he's got a great design and he's a badass.
Yeah, it really is impressive what they do at Senku. And also, like, they make sure that you know how incredibly physically weak he is. Like, he's pathetically physically weak.
There's
And, like, even with that, he's so cool.
there's one scene. I really love how they did this. Towards the latter part of the anime, where they compare all the different characters that you're introduced to as video games with stats, with HP and attack. And there's literally a child, like this little girl, who's like 5 or 6 years old, and she has a higher HP and attack than him. And she's like literally like a third his size. And also,
Is that the one that wears the watermelon on her
yes, what is her
Suika?
Suika? Yeah, Suika has a higher
head? Suka?
HP and attack stat than him. They did that in the manga as well, right?
I don't think so, honestly. If they did, it might have been, like, very, like, one-off. But I don't remember seeing that in the manga, like the stats.
So I'll just read some of the stats to you, and for the listeners, hopefully you watched it if you came back to this, and if you didn't, we'll talk about these characters a little bit more, but just for Rob's sake. So Senku has a 500 HP and a 1 attack. Suika has 500 HP and 3 attack. Gen, who's like the other shitty guy, he has 5 attack. That's literally 5 times as much as Senku. And then you have someone who's like Genro, who has 8,000 HP and 500 attack, and Kohaku has 20,000 HP.
What about Chrome?
Chrome is not on here.
He doesn't
No,
deserve to
no,
be.
unfortunately not. They even have like Kaseki, the old man, has 2,000
Oh my
HP.
god, I love the
Old
old
man's
man.
great. He has.
That's the thing too. There's so many like good supporting characters, but like they're not like too thrown in your face.
Do,
Like Senku is definitely the focal point.
yeah. And we were talking about this earlier in that in the very first few episodes or first few chapters, for me, I dropped the manga. I started reading the manga. I dropped it, not even finishing the first chapter because I was kind of bored by it. And
Right.
you stopped the anime because you weren't really into it. But I think
It's so funny that we did that. Like about a year ago, like I started the anime and couldn't get into it, and Justin started the manga and couldn't get into it, and then we flipped and we both ended up loving it.
I think the main reason why we dropped it was because of Taiju, who's the second main character in the first half of the series. So you have Senku, who's the genius, and his best friend is Taiju, who is this big meathead, but he's level. He's not like a jerk meathead. He's like this lovable, obnoxiously loud meathead who's pure of heart.
Right. And I think it was pretty clear early on, whether it was the editors or the author himself, that they didn't want this, typical shonen meathead to be a prominent figure in their series because he gets dumped pretty
I think
quickly.
they really were going to surround it around these two characters initially and like their adventures going through the world, and then they're like, "Oh no, people don't like him." Whether it's through the
I mean,
polls.
yeah, they do write him off, but he doesn't get killed.
How do you like it? How do you feel about him? Because I my feelings towards him changed throughout the first few episodes.
It's hard for me to say now because I've read further than you've watched now at this
Mm-hmm.
point, and they there's more characters as we go along, so him not being a center character makes him obviously far less obnoxious.
I was gonna say that the first episode he seems really obnoxious, but in the anime, he is actually like kind of hilarious. Like when he's yelling, because his voice is just kind of iconic in a way. But like when Senku's like, "We need to create an invention, the most important invention that will get us to the next step," and he's just yelling, "Smartphones!" Like, so, like, and he's like, "No, yeah, smartphones! No, you fucking idiot! Like, we don't even have a wheel yet. How the fuck do you expect us to make smartphones?" Or like, when so the girl that he's about to confess to, that he eventually goes to revive, Yuzuriha, who's like this pretty high school girl. So they're about to revive her. All of her clothes have deteriorated at this point, so she's just this like stone statue. And as they're about to pour the revival liquid on her, he stabs Senku in the eyes. He's like, "Ah, she's naked." And
He's such a pain in the ass.
it's actually very funny though the way they did it in the anime. I don't know if the comic version came across in the same way.
No, I mean I'll say the same thing. Like when I first watched it a year ago, I found him annoying. But like reading it, I think without like all the screaming, like he's really not that annoying and not that
Mm-hmm.
obnoxious. So like I really didn't mind him too much either.
Yeah, I think I also love the biggest thing I love about him, besides the fact that he's kind of like this lovable oaf, is that his relationship with Senku is like, man, I wish I had friends like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that.
I've only seen this in
So I can't
Japanese
really go off of that.
cartoons. Um,
Yeah, no.
but Senku calls him like you big oaf, but in a lovable way. And then
Yeah, yeah.
they just have complete trust. Like there's no power struggle. He's just like, "Senku, you're smarter than me. Please tell me what I need to do to make this work." And he gives complete control, which I don't think you're going to see in a lot of real life or in any real series where there's usually a power struggle between the two characters that are kind of like in the same age bracket or same level.
The power struggle comes from our villain, however.
Yeah, and there's pretty nice foreshadowing. Do you remember the foreshadowing in the first early episodes?
With Tsukasa, once they meet Tsukasa, and he punches a tiger in the face.
And kills it in one punch. The foreshadowing is done so blatantly where Senku's like, "Man, this is going to go great as long as we don't revive a murderer." And then like maybe two scenes later, Taiju passes by Sukasa's statue. He's like, "Oh, Senku, I saw the statue of that primate human. I guess even he got turned to stone too." And it's like, I wonder who the villain's going to be.
I mean, even like when they revive him and like they're like talking with him, like every time they're like hinting at the fact that this guy's gonna turn on them. Like Seiku's listing the uses of I forgot what it was, but he was like, and he didn't mention gunpowder. He said like there's 4 uses for this, and then he lists 3, and he's like, I'm not gonna say the last one.
Because it's about to be it's gunpowder, but he's like, "Did I say 4? I meant 3."
And don't want this guy to know that he can murder more people.
There is a list of things that he does that I have written down. So the first one you called, he punches a full-grown male lion in the face into a tree the moment he gets revived and kills it. After
Wait, we need to go back into that because like he literally the second he gets revived, he turns to Senku. He's like, "Tell me what you need me to do," and then Senku's like, "Punch that lion in the face."
like Senku's like, it's been 3,000 years. You got turned into stone. I need you right now. And he's like, okay, affirmative.
Like, all right,
I'm ready.
sounds good.
The next part,
Ridiculous.
he outruns a herd of wild boar and kicks the shit out of them, and then kills them all. He jumps out of a tree in midair, catches a bird in order to cook it. And he also spears. He's swimming in the ocean full of piranhas. They have spiky, sharp teeth, and he spears a whole bunch of them while swimming with them in the ocean. And he also splits a boulder in half with his bare fist.
Yeah, this is Tsukasa.
And mind you that this is not a supernatural series. This is set in very much the real world.
Yeah, they want it to be grounded in reality, other than like the whole fact that everybody was turned to stone. But then you have Tsukasa who punches lions in the face, like casually, after being asleep for 3,000 years.
For 3,000 years, and like there's like this very weird. I don't know what your feeling was. It's probably the same because they don't try to hide it. There's like one or two episodes where like there's this awkward symbiotic relationship between Senku, Tsukasa, and Taiju, where they're all working together. Like, wow, this guy's great. He's hunting for us. We get to eat meat. He's really strong, smart guy. And then, but every few scenes, you just see him glaring. Like, oh no, when is he going to do it? I don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to do something.
You see, I think this might have worked a little better in the manga because you see more the fact that Senku and Tsukasa both respect the other, but are both weary of the other in terms of like, you know, the power struggle of science versus strength. And I think there's a very mutual respect and almost a very mutual like hatred of the fact that they can't coexist.
I think that does display itself after Tsukasa kind of shows his hand.
Yeah.
And I think they do a really great job of showing. They make Tsukasa really empathetic. So Tsukasa's deal is that he believes that if you revive the adults and everybody, there's going to be a bunch of corruption, and it's not about everyone living a prosperous life anymore, which you kind of get from a philosophical perspective. As a high schooler, he was this super freak of nature, and people started kind of it seems like people were selling him off like a product, right? They weren't really treating him like a human. He's just a cash grab, so he doesn't want that to happen to anybody. And then Senku's like, no, I'm just going to revive everybody. So you can see both sides of the coin.
Yeah, it's the best villains are the ones where you understand why they're villains and you understand why they're the antagonist. You know, obviously to Senku he becomes the villain, but for me he's more of an antagonist because he's really, you know, doing what he believes is right and what he believes will lead to the best future. And he's not just killing people because they disagree with him. He's not just killing people because, you know, he's got a reason to it, and I kind of respect it.
I have a couple of flaws with Tsukasa, so I like him, and I love his philosophy, or I love the fact that his philosophy is kind of valid in many ways. The problem is later on when he starts forming his nation or his army, and it's a bunch of buffoons. Like it's not a peaceful place for or maybe it is, but it's not like a peaceful place of like smart and happy young people. He literally just gets a whole bunch of jacked bullies to work for him, and it's like, is this really your nation of paradise? And maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but that's where I kind of think his philosophy kind of fell through. He starts becoming like a fascist.
I wouldn't say that he's the problem. I would say his second in command is the issue.
What's his name? The guy
Hyuga
Hyuga
with the spear.
Yeah. What do you not like about Hyuga?
Hyuga is more so just like, I'm evil. Like, I'm a bad guy. I'm powerful, and I'm going to exert my power over you. And I think
so
his characterization is rubbing off on your perception of Tsukasa.
But isn't it Sukasa purposely went out of his way to find Hyuga to so it feels like he's just hiring strong people to
Oh no, he's absolutely
enforce his
going
belief
for strength.
system. You know, so it's not just
Yeah,
about creating this paradise where I will revive all the young children and create this place of freedom and um how do you say it, like freedom and like happy living and purity.
and chance for equality.
Yeah, if you're a wimp, you're gonna get bullied, and you could display that. It's really just the strongest man will survive.
Yeah, it really is like very into the wild. Like you're it's very animalistic.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about pre split up?
No, I think we've covered a lot of the importance of the character of both Senku and Tsukasa.
Let me think. Do you care anything about Yuzuriha, the
No,
love
I mean
interest?
she doesn't bring much to the table. I think her like big skill is sewing.
Yeah, she's a crafter. I think that he
Yeah,
was initially going to use her for something like as part of their party members. That's her skill, but then he threw her away.
I will say you get her skill later on,
Okay.
like after from what you've passed.
I think she's likable
Like
though. Like even though she's kind of
yeah,
generic, she's likable.
she doesn't really have much of a personality, I'll say.
Yeah. One more thing that I have in my notes to just kind of show how badass of a Senku is that for over 3,700 years, he counted the number of
Oh,
seconds.
that's
He
right.
counted over 100 billion seconds and stayed awake that entire time to keep track of the time to make sure he was revived in the springtime so that he could survive. Like, like
Ridiculous.
what an amazing way to show superhuman strength, quote unquote, in such a subtle way. Like normally it's I can lift this much or I could destroy this monster. It's I can count for 3,700 years straight. I can even count for 2 minutes straight, right?
I think he accounted for leap years.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, it gets really annoying when you count for leap years and the fact that the world travels at this awkward rotation, but he still did it.
Just,
Because at one point, he gets asked, how many days old are you? He's like 6,914 days old or something along those lines.
it's like it was awesome. End of story. Actually, one more thing I do want to bring up just about the series as a whole is you know remember in school we learned about like all the storytelling things. There's like man versus man, man versus God, man versus science, man versus nature. Like all the ways you have a story.
When did you learn this?
You never learned about this?
We went to the
It
same
was like all
school,
the
and I don't remember
it
learning.
was like all the types of like story or conflicts in a story.
Was this McAvoy's class? Because I wasn't present.
I have no idea.
Anyway,
Well,
continue.
regardless, it's interesting that this is essentially a man versus nature story, and you rarely have those in manga and anime.
Yeah, just I mean, giving credit to the series, it broke the mold for what shonen is because it's still a shonen series and it's interesting, and it's not just a battle manga, which is fantastic.
No, not at all. And the science sticks with me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean the power ups in this are not. I learned a new technique. It's we invented something new, and it's fascinating.
We invented batteries.
The problem I have with the science is early on, and I'm kind of like at a struggle with this. Is early on you start following along, like how did they make gunpowder, like from the volcanic ash and the sulfuric acid, and it's like pretty simple. But then as it goes further on, it kind of feels like they're materializing the invention without actually showing us the science. And it's like, is it because the science was really too complicated and we wouldn't have understood it anyway, or is it because they were lazy and it was just really complicated and they didn't want to show it?
I will say in the manga, like every like 2 pages, we get like a little editor's note, and it says "science provided by." So I think there's the author has like an outside person that helps him with like all the science.
That's cool. Yeah,
So it's like
that's.
it's literally like every other page, like "science provided by." And
Do you have
it's the same guy.
Mecha Senku in yours, the robot?
Mecha Senku.
So
What is?
they have cut-ins where Mecha Senku, who's like a robot version of Senku, explains what's going on.
Oh, okay. No, I do not have
You don't
Mecha
have Mecha
Senku in the
Senku?
manga.
I think it's kind of cool that they do that. Or he's like, if you combine these two chemicals, this is what happens. And then it's like an aside, and they go back to the story.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
No, we do not have Mecha Senku.
Okay, so let's go into the conflict. So Sukasa and Senku kind of both show their hand at this point, and they come to a confrontation where they kind of fight each other. And Senku plays another like really bold, intelligent move, and he has Tsukasa fake kill him because Tsukasa like this guy's the only threat to my kingdom surviving. Um, and you know Senku's not dead, but you're like, oh my god, he's dead. Did you get
You're like, okay.
did you get that feeling too? Like I was like, I know he's gonna be in the later chapters, but how the fuck are they gonna get out of here?
Yeah, I kind of felt that. I was like, maybe he is dead. Maybe the series is going in a different direction.
Um,
And I mean, because like this was one of the first series I've got into it in a while, spoiler free. So I was like, maybe this is like one of those like where they really just like fake us out on the premise of the story early on, and like they're killed off the main character.
yeah, I mean the stakes felt real. The enemy feels genuinely dangerous. It doesn't. It's like Tsukasa doesn't mess up. Um,
No,
so how are they going to get out of it? And I think the way they got out of it was fair. Like I didn't feel cheated. It wasn't an ass pull.
no,
Um,
and it ends up becoming like kind of a story element where the stones are, not entirely off everyone. When you break out of your stone shell, like parts of the stone shell remain a part of you.
mm-hmm,
Like Senku had the one on his, what was it, his neck, right?
that's what saved him.
Yeah,
And then you can see the crack. It's a really cool design feature. The cracks in everybody's body are part of
yeah,
the
yeah,
stone that like left chips in them almost.
yeah. It's very interesting. I also appreciate that just from a design standpoint, it makes the characters look very unique
Mm-hmm.
without like being too bullshit. Because like they are still normal humans from Tokyo, but like you're able to give them this interesting design quirk because of the world you've built.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to phase two of this first season, which is when he
Phase two
starts
of part one, yes,
interacting with new villagers.
the slice of life era, we'll call it.
I am not. This is where I'm curious if the manga did it better because I think the pacing gets really wonky here. So if I were to tell anybody to watch this, I would tell them watch the first 5 or 6 episodes until the first confrontation, and then maybe switch over to the manga. Is maybe my guess because I didn't read the manga, but there's like a 10 episode area where the slice of life gets real slow, and I don't know if it's the same for you.
It sounds like the anime probably dragged it out a bit, honestly.
There's a lot of areas where there's just like random gags that go on longer than they need to. The animation gets like a little slower where they're just holding and panning, and I can notice these things where it was kind of getting
Yeah, I think
problematic.
what would have been 20 seconds for you was one panel in the manga.
Okay.
So I could see why, like, it felt slower for you.
There's this one scene on the bridge. Like there's a fight. So we'll get into more detail later, but there's a one scene on the bridge where there's a fight, and literally one guy's hanging onto the bridge after he gets stabbed, and then they have like a whole 5 minutes pass by. I was like, this guy should be dead or falling into the
No.
water at this point.
Yeah, that was 2
Where
pages.
if your series does something like this, it takes you out of the environment and breaks the series for you. I think.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that is the product of an anime.
Yeah.
Is that sometimes it needs to fill time. I'd say the pacing of the manga, I feel like throughout everything I've read has been very, very fast paced. Not necessarily fast paced, but it's been well paced. I never felt really too many slow moments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
So I think that might be one of the benefits of the manga.
So during the slice of life era or arc, did you enjoy all the characters initially? Because I really did not. Like I thought. So you get introduced to Kohaku, who is this like sexy ninja kind of girl, like warrior girl. I thought she was like a cool design, but then you get introduced to like the rest of the characters from her village. Kinro, Ginro, Gen, or not Gen, but the rest of them. And
Oh my god, I love Gen.
Gen reminds me of you. Gen and Ginro remind me of you, which is not a compliment.
Gen is easily my favorite character in this series.
I really did not like all of these characters, this whole slew of like 8 characters for a good 6 to 10 episodes. How about you when you first met them?
No, I will agree with that. It takes a little bit to build them up into characters you care about.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in hindsight. Like, maybe initially, like if you're trying to hook viewers on your series, that might not be the best way to go about it. But in hindsight, like you end up really liking a lot of these characters.
Hmm.
So, you know, it's hard to comment on that now at this point
Yeah.
for me.
Hmm.
Although I will say, like, as far in as I am, Kohaku still really doesn't have a personality,
Yeah. No. I agree.
which is fine, but because we have Gen.
Why don't you talk about Gen? You seem very passionate about Gen.
So what you end up finding is that everybody that Tsukasa revives has like a trait, like what their skill set is, and Gen is the mentalist. That's how he's described in the manga. I don't. Is that what he's
Yeah, the
described as in the
mentalist,
anime too?
which isn't a
The
word.
mentalist. So what that essentially boils down to is that he's a bullshit artist,
Yeah,
right?
he's a bullshit artist.
Yeah, he just knows how to manipulate people, and it's hilarious.
Sounds like somebody I know.
I don't know what you're referencing.
So the combination of characters for me, for you, when as I was watching this, I was like, "This is so rough." So first you have Ginro. So you have these two characters, Kinro and Ginro. They're the village guard. Kinro is this tall, very straight by the rules, straight laced good guy. And then you have Ginro, who's like this fucking coward, pain in the ass guy, who's like, "Oh, I had to use my secret technique. I'm gonna run and make someone else do it."
So are we Kinro and Ginro?
That is our relationship, is Kinro and Ginro. You are essentially the Ginro to my Kinro, the lazier, trying to get out of work version partnership.
I mean, Ginro honestly has no redeeming qualities, though.
He gets his like mini arc of bravery, but he goes back to his like horrible ways afterwards.
Yeah, that's not inaccurate. None of that is wrong.
Here's my actual notes. Always trying to get out of responsibilities, a coward, a piece of shit, reminds me of Rob.
Wait, what are your notes for Gen?
Again, I said he reminds me of Orochimaru, and he's very petty and weak-minded. I should add another thing that says reminds me of Rob. I did not put that there though.
That is, I take that as a compliment.
He also has very cool, like hilarious expressions. Him and
I was about to say he's very well drawn in the manga. Like his expressions, they're very funny.
and Senku have the stupidest expressions, and they're hilarious. I love them.
Yeah. Everything about Gen, I really end up enjoying.
He's really a piece of shit. I really dislike him for a while, until later on.
You know what? To be honest, I liked him from the start. And it's funny because I could tell like from the start that he was one of those characters that's supposed to be written that you don't like initially, but like I clicked with him.
Like Gen's my guy.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, we got a magician. This guy's awesome. I'm all about this.
I like how he like, at least in the anime, obviously in the anime, he like raises his voice really high pitched. He's like, where he's like kind of cutesy when he's trying to manipulate someone. He's like, "Oh, me? No, I wouldn't do that." Like whenever he's trying to manipulate someone to show he's a good guy.
Does he do the like pig Latin in the anime?
What's the pig Latin?
Where he'll change the last letter. He'll say like instead of honestly, he'll say a honest or something like that.
Not. I mean, if they did it, it would be in Japanese, so I wouldn't notice.
Oh, that's right.
But they didn't do it in the subtitles.
But not even in like in the subtitles, they didn't do it with him.
Definitely not something I noticed.
Okay, there'll be like some words that every like text bubble he'll highlight like one word in like weird like pig Latin where he'll change the order of the lettering in the word.
Oh, okay, that's interesting as well. Other characters.
We need to talk about Chrome at some point.
Chrome's so boring. He's like a likable good boy, but he's not funny.
Does he do the whole bad thing in the anime?
What's the bad thing?
Where he says bad. Like every other word he says is, "This is the baddest thing ever." Like it's the way he
Chrome
says
the
cool.
Scientist. Like
yes.
I don't think so. Like I feel like after watching 20 episodes, I would have noticed that.
Oh no, it's like every other text bubble. It's just like in big lettering, BAAAAAD.
Is this a scanlator thing or is this an author thing? Right?
I'm reading it on Shonen Jump, so it's the author.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would have to rewatch parts of this, but I didn't notice. Like they didn't emphasize it enough because I watched it off. You know something I kind of miss is that when you used to have fan subs, they'd really emphasize or like do something with the word coloring and text and stuff. But when they do it through Crunchyroll, it's very like everything's samey because they just very professional. So they don't call those types of things out specifically.
Okay, yeah, no, because this is like his character quirk in the manga.
No. The only thing I have to say about Chrome is that he is involved in the worst tournament arc I've ever seen.
Oh my god.
You want to get there? Actually, let's talk about Magma, and then we'll talk about the worst tournament arc ever.
Magma wants to be the chief of the village that Senku discovers. That's about it for Magma.
Magma is literally Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh my god, right?
And he has the little helper guy who's kind of annoying with the
Yeah.
money. Yeah, he's literally Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, and he's very bland. But then we'll talk about it. But the author does something to make him likable, which is very impressive.
Yeah, he really. That's what really impressed me is the way he flipped Magma.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
but
say,
yeah, that tournament arc was. Tournament arc was terrible.
I'm trying to think of a tournament arc that's worse than this. Besides Girls and Panzer, I don't think there's a worse tournament arc than this. Which is
I mean, it was bad in the sense that literally, like, I'd say like 60% of the competitors were worthless.
yeah. How do you have a tour? So you're thinking that this is going to be a huge village tournament to go for the chief? It's literally 5 of the characters you know, and then one bad guy, the bad guy's helper, and one guy who doesn't even get a name. It's like pathetic. It's and the execution of the fights, except for the one Kinro versus Magma fight, are terrible.
Yes,
Like
I
Kinro
think
gets his redeeming glasses fight where he becomes Melon Man.
right because Senku invents the glasses and it cures his blurry eyes disease.
Fuzzy eye disease.
Fuzzy eyes, yes, the
It's
fuzzy eye disease.
it's so adorable. Like when Suika is like, "I have fuzzy eye stick." All right, Suika when she does like
Yeah.
it's
When they give her glasses, like, she can finally see the world, but it's her
but
watermelon head glasses.
but before they do that, like they take off her helmet and she's like the most adorable anime girl ever, and then she just scrunches up her face where she's just the ugliest piece of grandma shit ever. She's like, I can't see it. I can only see if I scrunch up and I get all these wrinkles. Um, but Kinro has too much pride to admit that he has fuzzy eye disease. But then he caves in and gets the melon head glasses to save the day. And then the referee's useless, where he's literally talking to the referee, and Magma literally like stabs him as he's talking to the referee.
Yeah, no,
It's a bunch of bullshit.
it's mayhem. It's a lawless village.
And he's like, "Yep, you won that officially."
And then Senku wins.
And
After wait, Chrome lights Magma on fire.
not only
And then
does he like while holding on to the helmet for a straight minute.
Yes.
It's just like the most asinine bullshit of like he's holding it and Magma just stands there.
Well, I mean, it was the work of the mentalist.
But before the mentalist gets there, though, he's just standing there and saying, "What are you doing?" to Chrome.
Okay, well, in the anime, it probably is drawn out more, so it
They're
makes it
dragging
seem like it makes it seem like it's bullshit.
Yeah, because in that 30 seconds, he could have beaten the shit out of Chrome, who was like on his last leg. And then Senku wins it all, which is like, oh, and then I love the Ginro steroids. That's actually like a funny character.
Yeah, that was good.
Where he starts like
And then-
shitting himself.
Yeah, which
Uh,
again was very relatable.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we've gone this long without saying like what this village is. These aren't stone people.
Right.
Like this village that Senku discovers, they are descendants of. Honestly, I gotta say this was one of my favorite flashbacks like ever of a series.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed this flashback. Oh my god, it was so good.
Yeah, because initially you're like, oh, they've been around for a little bit, but you don't know where their origin. Like maybe someone revived from the stone by accident and they started a village. But then,
Right.
talk about the flashback a little bit because I texted you when the flashback was over on my end, and I was like, oh my god, amazing.
So we get the flashback, which is about Senku's dad, who, at least from the manga, he's like a failed astronaut at first. He's like tried to take the test to become an astronaut, and he's failed. And then he finally, succeeds and gets sent up to the moon after a very wholesome like help from Senku to become an astronaut.
Like 5-year-old Senku.
With creating like a suit that can help him pass the swimming test.
That doesn't work.
So then he goes into space with like 6 other people, and then that's when, the world turns to stone.
Yeah, they from space.
They're still
Yeah,
alive.
from space they can see the force field taking over the Earth, and they're like, oh my god, what the fuck is happening?
And then they can't make any contact with Earth, and they're like, oh, fuck.
Byakuya is possibly. I mean, he only gets such limited screen time, but he's possibly one of the best characters in the whole show.
Absolutely. And, you get more characterization of him, as you learn further about the village, even after the flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And you, it's so well done and, like, builds the world in such an interesting
Is he
way.
the best anime dad of all time?
Oh my God, easily.
Like first of all, he's there. He's not dead. Well, I mean, he's dead and he's still there.
No.
Um, and there's a scene in the first early episodes. You don't get to see his face yet, but he sells his car to get Senku materials for his science lab. It was just
That's
so
right, yeah.
sweet, and it's a nameless, faceless character that you already start to love without even knowing him.
And it's also not Senku's real dad.
Even though they kind of look the same.
Yeah, I don't know why they're going with that, like, he's adopted storyline when they're kind of have some, yeah.
I mean, it's great that entire flashback of repopulating the Earth with just the six of them. It's like really heartbreaking, but very, I don't know. It's just really well done.
Yeah, I really genuinely enjoyed it. And then, like, it gives Senku some emotion, where he's had heart throughout the series, but, like, you get, like, actual, like, he can feel,
You could say that
they show him going to his father's gravesite and, like, actually feeling.
two things. First thing is, you could say that he has like this like stone like exterior Senku, because he's like putting up the tough guy front, where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna save the world and I'm gonna help lead us there, but he's struggling. Like he's so weak and so tired and constantly under threat, but he just keeps it cool. And this is the first time it kind of cracks, where he kind of gets this message from his dad. The second part that I don't know if this is a problem or maybe it just hasn't been explained yet is his dad and the astronauts landed in South America. How are their graves in Japan?
I honestly didn't even think about that.
That was bothering me, but I was like, maybe it formed a Pangea again, like all the continents collided again or something. But I don't know.
That is a very good question.
Like, this is his grave. I was like, symbolically, or do you really think he's there? But he's really there because that's where he buries the.
That's
he
right.
had to physically be there, but I don't think Senku's walked like maybe 200 kilometers from his initial point. So I don't know how.
Yeah, he's 100% still in Japan.
Yeah, even if the continents collided, I don't think that like it would have had to perfectly collide where like the tip of Brazil touches the part of Japan where he only needs to walk 200 kilometers to cross that to find the grave. You know what I'm saying?
I can't imagine how this works out geographically, but I feel like it must get addressed at some point.
I hope it does, but I didn't want that to ruin the moment for me.
No.
Oh, I had one final thought, and it was everyone's incestuous, technically.
Yeah, probably.
I watched a video on YouTube recently where it's like if only two people survived and they had to repopulate the Earth, by the second generation you're gonna start having incest because all the kids are gonna start banging. But in this you have six people, so maybe by like the third or fourth generation, you're gonna start having some issues.
I'm no math wizard, but I don't think there's a good way to pull this off.
For 3,000 years, it's kind of hard to avoid this.
Well, they made it happen.
It worked. They survived.
So where does the anime leave off?
It ends off. Okay, so you get a few wholesome moments. You get the Christmas tree.
I love the Christmas.
I don't like the Christmas because Tsukasa declares war on them, so they decide to light an entire Christmas tree, like a giant tree, to say, hey, we've discovered light bulbs, by the way, enemy.
Dick.
The second one is the second wholesome moment is they get the so they go on the adventure with Magma and the nice Magma redemption arc, and they give Senku his birthday present, which is the telescope, which is also really well done. And then what the hell's the last invention that they make? That cell phones.
Oh, that's right. Telephone. Okay, yeah.
So they invent the telephone, and Chrome is supposed to express his love to what's her name? uh Reiju, not Reiju, that's a One Piece character.
Riku?
Something like that. She's forgettable. Whatever. The priestess girl, and he just says, "How awesome is it that we're talking through these microphone things?" And then they get the CD. I think that's where we end off.
I think it was a record, not a CD.
Record, excuse me, the
Get your
glass record.
get your facts straight.
I think that's about it.
So, is there anything you want to talk about before we jump into our rating?
I have a couple of things. I think before we get into ratings, we should also have a anime manga discussion based on what we talked about on if we would argue for one over the other. But before that, do you want to talk about the Magma Redemption arc at all?
I mean, I did enjoy it because it starts it with making you think that magma's they need magma for his strength to collect materials, and they make it pretty obvious that it's like, oh, magma's just gonna turn on them and take advantage of Senku because he can just easily overpower him. But
Mm-hmm.
in the end, he ends up saving Senku and kind of believing in his science,
Yeah,
and it's
and
done very organically.
yeah, like you still hate Magma before that instance happens. Oh, there's a really funny scene where he's like, "We prevented the worst possible thing from happening," and Chrome thinks it's them dying, and he's like, "No, me and Magma would have had to hug for body warmth without our clothes on."
That's right.
And that part's actually genuinely very funny. Like I laughed out
Yeah.
loud. Is there anything else that is bothering me? Battle scenes, not very great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a battle. It's not a battle manga or a battle series.
Yeah, but I think I kind of expected more from this guy because he's a fantastic artist, and I think he's done a couple of other series. Like I think he's done Sunken Rock, which is like a feels like a very violent manga, and I would imagine the battle scenes are probably pretty strong there. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But there's like a few battle scenes here that are pretty weak, like the bridge scene that I talked about earlier, where Ginro is fighting what's his name, uh,
Hyuga?
Hyuga, and it's just really drawn out, and it's just sort of everyone on the sidelines watching these two guys sort of not really fight.
That sounds like an anime problem, honestly.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
the second part is when they come back and they all have katanas, and it's like you have these three people fighting Hyuga, but it's just not it's anticlimactic. I feel.
Yeah, I think that might be more of an author decision than artist decision. I think he really wants to emphasize that it's the science that is fighting, not like an actual battle itself.
That's fair. And also you have the mentalist saving the day there as well.
And I think that's probably more apparent in the manga.
Okay.
Because like in an anime, having these battles is a good way to pad out the runtime and a good way to have some filler. But in
Mm-hmm.
the manga, obviously, it doesn't need that. So
Yeah.
that once again, I would say is probably an anime issue.
So I guess if we were to jump into is there anything else you want to talk about actually, or
No, I
you
think we
feel pretty
covered all the things that I wanted to get into.
have you? Oh, by the way, have you listened to the OSTs
No,
for?
I haven't. I have very limited memory of anything about the anime or the sounds of the anime because I only watched that first episode over a year ago.
Okay, so the openings, there's two openings. They're both very strong. I think Good Morning World, the first one's really good, and the first ending's really strong as well. And
Mm.
the background music in general of just like it's intense when it needs to be. It's suspenseful or it's very calm and cheerful. I think they did a great job on that front.
Okay. Once again, I couldn't get any of that. I had the sounds of my crippling depression and silence surrounding me while I was reading. So I'm probably gonna go with anime winning in the sound department.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear the sound of your crippling depression every once in a while. Cheers me up.
Well, if I can brighten one person's day, then I would have done my job well.
Okay, then I guess manga. Oh, I keep saying one more thing. One more thing. Um, favorite invention.
Favorite invention? Um, I think for me, it's the record. Like getting that
Ah,
record to work, it's just like such a great moment, and you get that moment, another moment, like going into his relationship with his father, which I that's one thing that I absolutely loved about. this series is Senku's relationship with his dad.
Yeah, yeah. That I didn't even consider that, um, but that definitely takes the cake. I was gonna say in terms of like the ones that he invented, or the team invented. I really appreciated the water wheel because it's kind of like Chrome's character
Yeah,
evolution, where Senku's like, yeah, I gotta take care of some stuff, but I'm trusting you to take care of some other stuff. So him and Kaseki, the old man, develop the first water wheel to generate electricity, which just makes their journey that much easier. I think I
yeah,
care less about the invention, more the development of the other characters.
yeah. And I think that's the point, is that these inventions are a way to develop these characters, because they all
Yeah.
have to work together and do what they can do in order to get these inventions created.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anime versus manga. I think we're both somewhat leaning on the manga, right? Like you don't seem to have any cons. I have a good handful of cons. But I do have those few anime highlights that I really did enjoy.
So list your cons for me.
So I think after episode 6 or so, like after the conflict, the what do you call it? The slice of life arc
Yeah,
in the village is really quite drawn out in my opinion. And also the battles are quite drawn out. And that honestly might be it. It's just that it takes up a good portion of the series.
yeah.
But
I
there's
mean, I'll say that that wasn't an issue for me in the manga with the pacing.
mm, I
I
think the
will.
voice
I mean,
acting, the music, everything else is fantastic.
it was a little. At some point, I wanted the whole medicine arc to end. I will say
Yes.
that. I think that was a little drawn out, but other than that, I felt the pacing was 100% fine. I had no problem with it.
In terms of a con, this isn't even related to anime versus manga. It's just Ruri is her name actually, the priestess. I just remembered. Um, the sick priestess is just feels kind of tropey, and you know how it's going to turn out.
She had
So
pneumonia.
she had pneumonia, but I mean, you just know that she's going to get cured. You're going to find the secret, and it just felt like when you know what's going to happen, but you're just drawing out the journey to get to this, and the journey isn't even that enjoyable.
Yeah,
Um, that's something I didn't really love about this first season.
yeah. She feels like more of a plot device to develop Chrome more than her own character as of now.
And they do this really like the sexual scene where she's getting fed the medicine. Did they do that for you guys too?
I didn't pick up on that if they did.
There's this really, really sexual scene where she's bent down on her knees with her mouth open, and
Oh god.
Senku is eating the white medicine from a leaf while she's bending down with her mouth and tongue open. I was like, you
Yeah.
really had to, and they're like zooming up from her thighs up to her breast, up to her face, like in a slow pan. I was like, you didn't need to do that.
As far as like fan service from reading it, the only thing you get is Kohaku at like thigh shot angles. Like every time
Okay.
she's in like a page, she's doing like a backflip with her thighs showing very prominently.
I'll take it. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that.
I definitely didn't get that sensual medicine scene though.
I took pictures of it for
Now,
personal reasons.
do you list that
Um,
as a pro or a con?
they were not subtle about it at all. Like it was just so blatant that it felt like, are you? Come on, guys. Where it
Okay,
takes you out
so
of the scene. It's a con.
one
I would say.
pro. Oh,
uh, okay. Um. Okay. I think we're up to ratings, right?
all right.
You want to go
So
first, or you want me to go first?
I'll go first. So from what I've read, I'm not going to go past the end of season 1 of what you watched. So that's
Okay.
the end of arc 1 essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is tough. I'm really enjoying this series. I think I don't want to be premature cuz it's something that's new to me, and sometimes when I watch something new, I really like it,
Mm-hmm.
but I do still feel comfortable giving it an A.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am giving it an optimistic B.
B.
which
Okay.
which seems like a little bit harsh, but those middle segments are really quite slow. I love the first five, and I love the second half and the flashbacks, but the middle portion is not perfectly done. But it's an optimistic B, and I have a feeling it's going to go up from here. But it's one of those things where you never know. Like you have something as great as Naruto or Bleach, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, what did you do?
Yeah.
So it's an optimistic B. If I wouldn't push it into A minus range. If I gave it a B plus, I could swing that as well. But for now, give it an optimistic B.
Now, do you intend to read from here on out?
Yeah, I think I'll give it a switch because I had those few problems with the the anime that I would. I want to see his artwork. I think he's one of the best artists out there right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm ready to experience that. And the Stone Wars should be very interesting.
So I've read it, and it is.
Okay,
I,
good.
I think it
So
really picks up here, actually.
okay, so I think we're upward trending from here. But and I'm excited to do a second pod on this as well.
Yeah. You got to let me know when you're caught up. I'm looking forward to it.
Are you caught up? Caught up, or are you just
No, no, no. I think I'm around chapter 90
okay? So I'll let you know when I catch up, and maybe we'll do another podcast on this in a few months from now
on
with my
Dr.
updated rating.
Stone, part 2. We're
um,
still not in the Stone Age.
one last thing before we go is just announcing we have an email. Rob, what's our email?
I have no idea. I did not know we had an email.
We are going to, if you have any questions or recommendations for what we should watch next or read next, it's sclasspodcast@gmail.com. And we're excited for the next part 2 of this series.